Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. I'm joined today by writer, director, producer, the great Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
It's a great Friday. I'm looking forward to going into the weekend with all the greatest movie news we can deliver today.
Yeah, and there is at least one great movie in theaters this weekend with How to Train Your Dragon. Not so much The Materialist, but we'll talk about that in just a bit. But most importantly, of course, guys, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off by talking about a few predetermined topics. Then in the second part of the show, we're going to take some questions that you guys have sent in. Now, we're going to be cutting today's show a little bit short just because it's mine and Ann's 15th wedding anniversary weekend.
Wow.
And we're going to go take off to San Diego, I think, for the weekend. So we are going to go through some of the questions that you guys have sent in already using our tip link. But if you don't see it read out today, it's just because we cut the show a little bit short, and we'll get around to answering them on the next episode, of course. And yeah, Rob, I went to go see Minimalist, or I keep saying Minimalist, Materialists last night. I'll talk about that experience in just a second, but we got something else to talk about here first, and we're going to get things started off with this. Well, you guys know that July is shaping up to be a massive weekend, and one of those, or a massive month, I should say, and one of those movies that is opening up that looks pretty massive is the new Jurassic World film that is coming out. And now, according to Deadline, they're saying Jurassic World Rebirth is heading to 115 million plus, up to 130 million plus 5-day opener over the July 4th stretch. This is what Deadline has to say. Universal's reboot of Jurassic World Rebirth, it's not really a reboot, starring Scarlett Johansson and Jonathan Bailey, is shaping up for a $115 million to $135 million 5-day, according to the 3-weekend tracking released Thursday morning. This is the second Jurassic movie to open on a Wednesday in Universal's history after 2001's Jurassic Park 3, which did $85 million over its first Wednesday to Sunday. Jurassic World Rebirth is hot across the board, with men and women unaided in the first choice. In the latter, men under 25 are a bit stronger, followed by women under 25. Numbers are slightly behind that of 2022's Jurassic World Dominion, which opened to 145 million. But note, it's still early in the campaign. There's no denying that Rebirth could be massive. Dominion, which was shot during COVID, finaled at 376.8 million domestic and $1 billion worldwide. Okay. So one of the first things that we've got to point out here that's in the article is that 115 to $135 million that they're currently projecting, and they are saying it's still early, they really haven't started truly ramping up the marketing yet, but that is for the 5-day weekend. Okay. That will not be the official opening weekend. It won't count the extra days. So the official opening weekend right now, they're saying could come in somewhere around $100 million, which when you think about that, in today's kind of box office era that we're in, $100 million opening for a franchise that a lot of people thought might be done would actually be pretty strong. And then, of course, after the $100 million opening, and it could be bigger than that, the question becomes, will it have legs? Will it continue to go on and do bigger and bigger and bigger business? Will it get suffocated out by Superman and Fantastic Four? Or will just so many people be loving and going to the movies, it won't really matter? So, Rob, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to see that first number, 115, 135, and think, oh my God, but you got to keep in mind that is the 5-day opening weekend, which puts it around $100 million for the opening weekend. Rob, do you think these estimates are accurate? You don't think so? You think it's going to be much bigger than this?
What do you think? It's going to be much big. These guys are too low. You know, I mean, I think, remember, John, dinosaurs eating people. I mean, never underestimate the power. And it's not just domestic. I mean, look, I think the trailers have been great. I think the fact that they're leaning into the horror of it all. You know, that scene in the water was something that was in the original Jurassic Park novel that they weren't able to do at the time back in '93. I think this movie is going to, make a lot more money than that. I mean, this is a big, big I think people underestimate because we're so used to Jurassic Park movies because this is the 7th one, but there's always more kids that haven't seen a Jurassic Park movie in the theater, and they're gonna go, and they're gonna take their parents, and they're gonna wanna go again, and this movie's gonna make a lot of money. I think these estimates are low.
You know, one of the things that we don't really talk about much, and I haven't heard the conversation, come around to this a lot, is that I think a lot of people, including us, lose sight of the fact that the writer for this movie is the guy coming back who did the
David Yep.
original adaptation for Steven Spielberg's first Jurassic Park. This is the same writer who did that one. And I think a lot of us have been looking at the trailers for this movie, right? And we've been looking at it and say, you know what? The second one wasn't very good, but this one looks surprisingly good. I mean, when I look at the trailers for this, they seem to carry this X factor, that this intangible, this something about them that just draws me in a little bit more than the ones that we've had previously in the last couple of years. And maybe that has to do with the screenwriter. Maybe that is, look, I've also got to believe, and we said this before, but if Mahershala Ali and Scarlett Johansson are coming into this, they must have liked what they read in the scripts. I think this is probably going to be, look, I know this is a bit of a wild stab, but Rob, I think this is going to be the best Jurassic Park movie maybe since the original. Again, I won't know that till I see it, and its ultimate box office will really depend on how good or bad the film is, but I think this could be the best one we've had since the original one. Where are
I
you seeing it going?
I totally agree with you. Although I really liked The Lost World. I think there's a scene in The Lost World where they're on the glass, the piece of glass that's when the truck is hanging over the thing. I think it's one of Spielberg's greatest in terms of directing a suspense moment, one of his greatest moments. But I think you're right. I think that what this is tonally, this is gonna give us something new. I think one of the things about the first Jurassic World movie, which I didn't dislike, it just seemed like we'd seen it before. Like the idea of the park actually opening was great, but it was kind of this has a different feel to it. And I think maybe it's because they're leaning into the horror elements of it. I mean, this feels like it's nasty. I've always felt that the Jurassic Park movies, because they're like kid friendly, they've always kind of they only could go so far.
Right.
You can have a Tyrannosaurus chasing somebody or eating somebody, a bad lawyer in a outhouse, but you couldn't go into that alien area where some really horrible things could happen. And this looks like they might be halfway between eating that lawyer and getting to the alien body horror. I mean, it looks yeah, I think that all the marketing for it's been great. It's made me interested in it. And I think that there's an edge to this, and it might be like you said it, that sort of intangibility that maybe the character interaction, the fact that you have, as you pointed out, Mahershala Ali and Scarlett Johansson, that's some star power too. You've got them coming off of great work, box office successes, and Academy Award wins. So the pedigree here is pretty high.
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this? They're aiming right now. They're saying this Jurassic movie is going to open in the triple digits, like up to $135 million for its 5-day. But I mean, they're only really starting to truly ramp up the marketing right now. It could be higher than that. Rob thinks it's going to be higher. Do you think it's going to be higher? Maybe you think it's going to be lower. And what do you think about the looks of it so far? I actually think this looks pretty good, to my surprise. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's talk about this, shall we? Other than How to Train Your Dragon, which is opening now, it's in theaters now. It's opening weekend. Had a great opening Thursday night, by the way. The numbers are coming in, and it's really impressive for it. So congrats to How to Train Your Dragon. You guys should go see it. Rob and I saw the film 2 months ago. Loved it. We think you're going to enjoy it too. But the other film that opened up this weekend is Materialists with Dakota Johnson, Pedro Pascal, and Chris Evans, coming from the director of Past Lives, a movie which I absolutely loved and adored and was completely fantastic. So you get a cast like this, you get this director, surefire hit, right? Well, maybe not. I went to go see this movie, and it's got positive reviews in general. Like Rob, maybe you can look it up, but I haven't checked what the Rotten Tomatoes rating on it is right now. But I went to go see it. I kind of agree with NPR. The math in Celine Song's Materialists doesn't add up. Guys, I'm going to tell you what. This movie disappointed me on so many levels. And it's kind of, let me just give you the quick rundown here, which you probably picked up a lot on from the trailers itself. Dakota Johnson plays a matchmaker. She works for a professional matchmaking industry where they get in clients and they try to match them up with people who they think would be a good fit and all this kind of stuff. As such, she has developed this view of relationships as formulas and math that the romantic kind of jungle out there, they refer to as the marketplace. And depending on how good looking you are, your age, your weight, your income, determines how good of an asset you are. Oh, you're a good commodity in today's marketplace, or there's just not a place for you in the marketplace, and all this kind of stuff, right? And so, of course, she comes into a bit of a conundrum where she, on the same night that she meets a guy who she refers to as a unicorn, like a perfect 10 out of 10, Pedro Pascal, good looking, right height, no drinking problem, super nice, mega rich. Well, she happens to run into him and meet him on the same night that she also bumps into her old boyfriend of 5 years, Chris Evans, who they broke up because he had no money. He's a struggling actor in New York City, working waitering jobs and all this kind of stuff. Now, look, this all sounds like a great setup to an insightful rom-com. And you know what, Rob? That's what this movie should have been. This movie should have been a rom-com, like an insightful, heartfelt rom-com. I think if they had, it would have been more enjoyable. I think it would have been more touching. I think it would have hit people better. But it's a rom-com that doesn't try to be funny. And the problem, Rob, is, you know, you can have lots of movies don't try to be funny and they're awesome. But this feels like it really should have been a romantic comedy that didn't try to be funny at all. And the problem was all the other things they were going for fell flat. Now, in Celine's last film, Past Lives, you had depth in all of the characters. And you had chemistry, Rob. Like in Past Lives, when she's talking to her former flame just over video call, you could feel the chemistry.
Yeah.
You could feel the passion. You could feel the depth of the emotion. You could feel all that. None of that existed in this movie. There was more chemistry between Pedro Pascal and Chris Evans than there was between Dakota Johnson and Chris Evans or Dakota Johnson and Pedro Pascal. Just none. And Rob, I've come to a conclusion after watching this movie.
Uh-oh. Here it comes.
Dakota Johnson's not a very good actress. I saw her in a couple things that where I saw potential in her. I thought, you know what? I think she's pretty decent. And I think when she gets material that she can really let loose on. But this cold, shallow, empty aloofness that seems to permeate all of her roles, this was a role that did give her an opportunity to elevate when she's supposed to be having these emotional conversations with Pedro Pascal or these emotional conversations with Chris Evans, and she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. It was that same cold, shallow aloofness that comes across in everything else that she does. And I'm left to kind of now start to think that the common denominator here is her, and I'm starting to wonder if she may just, I used to think it wasn't she I used to think the case was that she just wasn't being given the material to showcase how much she can elevate it. And now I'm starting to believe no, she's just not capable of elevating it. What was the one she was in with Shia LaBeouf? Peanut Butter Falcon?
Yeah.
Was that the name of it?
Yep.
That's the best I ever saw her.
She was great in that.
It was the absolute best I've ever seen her. But I have not seen her even remotely be able to recapture that or touch on that again. And it left us with these things of, oh, she's really in love with Chris Evans's character. But never once in the movie, and it's not just Dakota Johnson's problem. It was never once did the movie ever make me go, well, why does she love him? Like never once. The movie, we're just told she loves him.
Sure.
And they had a 5-year relationship. Okay. But never once in the movie did they ever even try to make us as the audience feel why she would love him. The stuff with Pedro Pascal, like, and again, Chris Evans and Pedro Pascal actually do a pretty damn good job with this movie. They actually perform well. You can tell they're trying to carry the scenes, but my God, just no chemistry. The logic in it starts to fall apart. This is a minor spoiler, but I won't give you any details. There's this random sexual assault sub-storyline that comes into the movie kind of randomly that ultimately has a really odd, it's like, that's why we had that part of a storyline kind of thrown in here from left field was for this. And then by the end of the movie, Rob, I was wanting to scream at the screen. I was wanting to yell at it. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? Like for some of the ways some of the logic stuff played out, it was a thoroughly dissatisfying movie, especially coming off of Past Lives,
right?
Which is so rich and so good and has so much depth. And you feel every beat of that movie that goes along. And in this one, to me, it was just completely absent. It was just completely absent. And
it does have an 87% tomato meter score, John.
Yeah.
That's critics. And then the popcorn meter is 74% from viewers. So, what I find interesting about this, Celine's song, both Past Lives and this movie, was based on her actual experience. She was a matchmaker. And I think the thing about Past Lives was it wasn't a comedy. It was a sublime slice of life story that was, I think, deeply moving and affecting, and in a very quiet but very profound way. It was almost like I was watching, I don't know, some French romance from the 60s or something. But it was, I love that film. I love the fact that it was actually shot on film. I think, and I'm saying this having not seen the movie, I think one of the things that is fighting this movie is fighting against the fact that here she tried to do something similar, but the audience is set up to expect a rom-com. It looks like it's from a genre, a well-worn genre, like, a movie like Hitch that Will Smith is in. Like, I love Hitch, and that was, I think it was based on a newspaper article or a magazine article, and yet they had you. If you're working in a genre like the rom-com genre, of which we haven't seen very many, especially theatrically released, that have really worked, unless Sydney Sweeney's been in it. There's a certain expectation, and the way they've been selling this movie, if that expectation isn't met, and it sounds to me like it's not, because I thought it was more of a rom-com as well, but it's more of a, I guess, a realistic look at dating and what. So it doesn't have the fun that you're expecting, I guess.
Yeah, and I'll say this for it, is that it has some very profound things to say about modern relationships. And that however far we think we've progressed as a people, as a culture, as a society, it's still guys want girls who are younger and girls want guys who are rich. It's there.
Right.
It's still, it makes some really great observations about the inherent shallowness in all of us through some of it. And it makes some really good social observations of that. There's also, while it's absolutely not a comedy, There are one or two good laughs, and I'm going to tell you, this won't spoil it because you won't see this coming. Okay. You guys won't see this coming, but after it happens and you laugh your ass off, then you'll remember that I told you this. There's a joke in this movie related to a lesbian that I don't think I've laughed this hard at a single joke in a movie this year. As hard as I did in this one. Again, I didn't just spoil anything for you because you won't see the joke coming. You won't see it coming.
Okay.
It'll happen. And then you'll go, oh, that must be what Campea was talking about. It was really, really funny. But again, everything else outside of its great social observation about how we view dating and relationships and the shallowness we still have. And aside from one or two really good moments, and that Pedro and Chris Evans, they act their asses off in it. I just feel the lack of depth given to anything in the story. I feel the lack of emotional relatability and the inability of the movie to get us to connect on an emotional level to what's going on with the characters. And the fact that our lead, I'm not giving up on Dakota Johnson, just to be clear. But one of the true primary weaknesses of this film was her inability to elevate the material or change things up depending on the types of conversation she was in. And I'm starting to doubt she has the ability to do it. And I say this as somebody who's been a fan of hers traditionally, but I'm starting to lose faith in it. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Did you guys have a chance to see The Materialists? If so, what did you guys think about it? Where's your expectation of it? Are you even planning on see it? Listen, don't just take my word for it, okay? Like Rob pointed out, the critic reviews are in the 80s. I don't understand why, but they are, which means there's a good, the highest, which means there's a good chance that maybe some of you may enjoy it. So don't let me completely dissuade you from seeing it. But for me, as a huge fan of Past Lives, this movie fell flat for me. But whatever you guys think about this, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Period, end, stop, no questions asked. Andor is simply the best thing Star Wars has ever done since the original trilogy. Nothing else comes close. I'm not going to have the discussion with anybody about it. Everything's subjective. You may feel differently about it, and I appreciate that. But to me, Andor is such superior Star Wars and superior television that it absolutely blew my mind. Now, one of the big problems that Andor and challenges that Andor faced, particularly in season 1, was the fact that as good as it was, not a lot of people, not by Star Wars standards, I should say, not tons of people flocked to watch it, which was kind of understandable, right? It wasn't your traditional Star Wars. It wasn't space adventure, which I love my space adventure Star Wars. It wasn't Jedis and lightsabers, which I love my Jedis and lightsabers in my Star Wars, but it was totally different. And so, although the viewership kept going up for Andor season 1, it was not one of the higher rated viewership-wise Star Wars things that they had put out. Well, then season 2 came out and the numbers were better. And then in its second week, it set new record viewership numbers for Andor. Then its third installment, and it set a new record for Andor viewership. And it kept going up. And now the numbers have come in. The finale of Andor topped the Nielsen streaming charts, came in at number 1, setting another, for the 4th week in a row, all-time viewership record for Andor. The folks over at TV Line write this. With the release of its 4th and final 3-episode batch, Disney Plus's Andor rose to the top of the Nielsen latest U.S. rankings of streaming originals. For the week of May 12th, Andor amassed 931 million minutes viewed, another weekly high for the series, across 24 total episodes. Netflix's You placed second on the streaming originals, ranking with 779 million minutes, 50 episodes, followed by Hulu's Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I didn't even know that was a real thing. Netflix's Forever, Netflix's American Manhunt, and then it says rounding out the top 10 were for streaming originals for the week were of May 12th were Netflix's The Four Seasons, Peacock's Poker Face, Hulu's The Handmaid's Tale, and Paramount Plus's Mobland, which I really like Mobland a lot. Anyway, so a couple of big takeaways here for Andor. Number one, that it finished at the top of the chart, something that I don't think any of the season 1 weeks were able to do. Number two, that every single week, Andor set a new viewership record for itself. Every single week. We always talk about this. It's fine and everything. If you look like a show, Rob, like Andor, or a show like Ahsoka, it debuted with big numbers. Its first week had pretty solid numbers. The problem is the show wasn't very good. And so every week, the viewership numbers went down until they got to the finale where it took a little bit of a bump up, but they went down. It's tough to have a show where week after week, word starts getting around and more people start to tune in. And that's what happened exactly with Andor. The excellence and the quality of this show just spread around. People say, well, I better get caught up. And then week after week after week after week, Andor was setting new standards and new records for itself, which is pretty incredible. And Rob, all I can say is, I hope the people at Lucasfilm and the people at Disney are paying close attention to this to see that, hey, yeah, okay. Yeah, Andor season 1 was completely different. And not everybody wanted to jump on board with a prequel to a prequel. Without lightsabers, without big space battles, with all that kind of stuff that we normally associate with Star Wars. And it took a little bit for them to get their footing, but the quality of the show has won over a lot of people to the point now that it settles on here. So anyway, Rob, the question I have a couple of questions for you is, number one, are you surprised to see these numbers that are coming in now, that it's actually topping the Nielsen charts? And secondly, do you think this is something that the folks at Disney are going to pay attention to? And do you think this could help influence the direction Star Wars takes in the future?
Well, one, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, I think that episode 8 of the second season of Andor is one of the finest hours of television I've ever seen. And it was completely earned. The thing about, I think what people forget when it comes to genre storytelling, whether it's Star Trek, Galactica, Doctor Who, Star Wars, it's best when it's allegorical. And the thing about Andor is it had as much to say about the Star Wars universe itself as it had to say about our world and us as a
Yeah.
people today. And, you know, Star Trek and the Twilight Zone became popular in the late 50s and early 60s and mid 60s. Actually, Twilight Zone started in the late 50s. Star Trek started mid 60s to the late 60s. They were allegorical shows, and you couldn't talk about certain issues on television at the time, but you put them in the Twilight Zone or you set them on the Starship Enterprise, and you can get away with telling those stories. If you were to make an overtly political show about rebellion or about politics on our planet now, I don't know if people would tune in. But if you use the Star Wars universe and you create, as Tony Gilroy said, he wanted to talk about, this was a subject matter, rebellions across history and government's rise to power is something he was obsessed with his whole life. And he got to tell a 1,500-page story about rebellion and about political machinations and about how democracy is lost. And he was able to tell a story within the Star Wars universe that related back to us. It's the best kind of genre storytelling. And I think what's happened with a lot of our other franchises is the stories that are being told are only about themselves. So if you watch Ahsoka, what is that about? It's about Star Wars, it's about the Clone Wars animated space witches and this, that, and the other thing. How does that relate to the viewer? Even the original Star Wars, Luke is a farm boy, Han's a truck driver, Ben Kenobi is a crazy veteran of foreign wars. We knew who those people were. Luke was all of us. And I think that the thing about Star Wars that made it so great is when you have a real person like a Luke Skywalker or a Han Solo, who's the cool guy we all want to know, we can get into the fantasy world of it all. And of course, the first people we meet are these bumbling droids that we don't even know, but you relate to them, even though they're robots. And in Andor giving us K2SO, it's the same kind of thing. And seeing Cassian's journey, we know who this guy is. And I don't know who Ahsoka is, and I think what Star Wars needs to do, I mean, what did Lucas do? He went back and looked at Kurosawa's work when he first started making Star Wars. I think that has shown, Andor has shown, if you make television that is both Star Wars in the Star Wars universe, but it also relates somehow back to us as people today, that it has something to say about our world that we're living in today. I mean, more than ever, I mean, Andor is as relevant as any show on TV,
I
even though
mean,
it's set in a galaxy a long time ago, far, far away.
the speech that Mothma gives in the Senate could have very well been spoken on the steps of Capitol Hill today. I mean, like it almost felt a little too close to home, a little too
And
real.
it was like on the nose, but it was made years ago. It took them 2 years to finish the
Yeah, it was
show, so
made
they
forever
didn't
ago.
know where we're gonna be. But that's what I mean. The best fantasy, I always like to say that the best fiction is the most truthful. And I think Andor was exactly that. And, people that wouldn't have even necessarily been Star Wars fans could tune in and watch it because it appealed beyond just the fan base. And, it's an extraordinary bit of television, and it's an extraordinary bit of entertainment on every level, from the acting to the production design, but mostly the writing and the direction. The execution is flawless, and what a great cast of actors that they got to portray these characters. I mean, my God, Mon Mothma and Luthen, those are
Oh,
characters for the ages.
and I never had a Mon Mothma rave scene on my bingo card when I started watching Andor, and yet I became completely obsessed with it when it happened. I mean, look, the great thing about this is that, and I think I said this on open mic the other day, Rob, is that the true genius of George Lucas's creation isn't the spaceships, it isn't the Jedis, it isn't whatever. To me, the true genius of George Lucas's creation is just how vast it can be. So George Lucas created this universe that I think too many, both himself and Disney, have been woefully lacking in taking advantage of. Have created this universe where you can tell so many kinds of stories. Like I see some people hear me talk about Andor and they think I just want them to make all Star Wars like Andor now. I don't. I
No.
want I want my hyperspace and lightsaber fantasy. I want my high adventure. I want that, but I also want this. Let us have all of it. Like, that's the great thing about this universe. It's so big, it's so vast. You can do all of it and hopefully make it really good.
Yes.
And like I've been saying, Rob, and I think the ratings point this out, dear Bob Iger, do whatever you have to do to keep Tony Gilroy in the building. I don't care what you got to do. I don't care how much you got to pay. I just don't care. Do whatever you need to do to keep him in the building and keep him making stuff for this, because he's just set a new bar. He showed us a kind of Star Wars I don't think we even realized we could have, and he did it. And you know what else they did, Rob? Not only did they give us great, drama and great lore, they actually fleshed out the overall lore of Star Wars
Oh, yeah.
more, right? Like by the way, you know what else popped up in the top 10 of Nielsen streaming? Rogue One. Rogue
Oh,
One
right.
jumped back up into the top 10 of streaming movies on the Nielsen ratings. And like everybody said, you watched Andor, then you watched Rogue One, and it hits different. And then Ann and I watched the original Star Wars. So we finished Andor, we then watched Rogue One again, and then the other night we watched Star Wars: A New Hope. And now A
Well,
New Hope hits differently. It's amazing.
what's interesting about that is A New Hope begins the cycle again because Cassian Andor wasn't necessarily extraordinary. If you look at his origins, and then once Cassian Andor passes on, Luke sort of takes up the mantle of the every person that then gets caught up in the rebellion.
Yeah.
And then his path is to become, a Jedi. And what's interesting about that is I think what people forget is before we heard about midi-chlorians, the path of the Jedi was like the path of Bushido, or it was about self-improvement, through an understanding that you're part of a bigger universe. And even that idea, I don't believe it. Well, that is why you fail. That can be applied to anybody doing any task. And the original trilogy really spoke to, I think, every person, because you can, with the proper application of ideology and belief in yourself, you can be a better person. And that's kind of what take away the actual fantasy Jedi aspects of it. But what Luke was what Yoda was trying to impart to Luke is, you can be better than you are. You just have to believe in yourself and work hard and apply yourself to a certain, with a certain gusto. And maybe you can do things that you didn't think you could do. And I think that was something like when Empire came out, people were like, yeah, it's great. It's a sequel to Star Wars, but it was Yoda that became a big breakout star, and people started quoting him because you can apply his lessons to your everyday life. And that's another element that Star Wars had in it that we've never forgotten. Do or do not. There is no try. Almost 50 years later, that still is actually it's 45 years later. It's as resonant as ever.
I don't believe it. That is why you fail. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? I mean, Andor has, now that the ratings numbers are in, finished at top of the streaming charts, but even more importantly than finishing at the top of the streaming chart, it showed that every single week it broke its own viewership records, going up and up and up and up. That's the surest sign that the audience was loving what they were seeing. How do you think this might influence or alter the direction Star Wars may be looking at going in the future? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's talk about this for a second here, shall we? There is a brand new, I don't know if you heard about this, but there is a brand new Superman movie coming. It's opening up here soon.
Really?
Apparently the ticket sales have been pretty good. It broke some sort of record for opening day. That's right, it was. First day ticket sales. It broke all the records for first day ticket sales for the year, passing Minecraft, passing Lilo and Stitch, passing Fantastic Four, which had held it, and all that kind of stuff. And one of the reasons, not the reason, not the only reason, but I think one of the reasons why you're seeing such big numbers popping up here about how big of an opening it could have and all that kind of stuff is the marketing. Now, when we talk about marketing, most people will just think about, understandably so, they'll be thinking about, say, the trailers, right? Which is understandable, because that's the primary marketing tool in the world today is trailers. That's what it is. But marketing goes beyond that. Ryan Reynolds with Deadpool, Rob, kind of highlighted the fact that you can do a lot of great marketing for your movie without the use of trailers. And Superman seems to be digging into that and doing a lot of stuff. As a matter of fact, take a look at this. This is the Eiffel Tower in France. And they are pulling out all the stops. I don't know how much they had to pay the Parisian government to let them go in there and do that. Or maybe we'll come back stateside and head over to San Francisco, where if you're driving across the Golden Gate Bridge, you're seeing this appearing in the sky. That's obviously just a good drone show. They just use drones to do that.
Sure.
But anyway, so they are going above and beyond on social media, using, and I've seen a whole bunch more. Like, we've also seen a lot of other non-traditional marketing things, like the popcorn buckets. God, man, I just saw a popcorn bucket they did of crypto. Have you seen this? No. It's crypto sitting like a good boy, holding a plastic popcorn bucket in his mouth, and it's that popcorn bucket that's filled with popcorn. I gotta look
this up.
It's adorable. A Canadian movie theater chain's popcorn bucket is like a it's like a newspaper box, the old school that you'd find on the sidewalks, a newspaper box. Put in a quarter and you'd open it up and pull out the newspaper, but you open it up and that's where all the popcorn is.
Wow, so this crypto popcorn bucket from Cinemark is great, dude.
Isn't that wonderful? It doesn't look like it holds a lot of popcorn, but it's a great popcorn bucket, right? They are just amping it up. Now, here's the thing, though. I saw a report come out that was suggesting that this could be the highest marketing budget for a movie in history. Now, I think the largest I'd ever heard of before, because most movies will market 30, 40, 50 million dollars. Some get up to $100 million marketing, some even a little bit more than that. But I think it was Endgame was the first movie that I ever heard of that spent 200 million on the marketing campaign. What I'm hearing about Superman, and I cannot independently verify this, so let's just be clear about that. But what I'm hearing about Superman, Rob, is that they spent $250 million set aside for that would be one of the most expensive movies of all time. Like just the marketing, because I think it makes sense because of how important this movie is to them. They need people to see it and to see that it's good and all that kind of stuff. And I think if you're putting that kind of money into something like this, you got to believe in it. Now, obviously, Superman's done a lot of things to make us understand that Warner Brothers believes in this film. They're having that advanced day fan screening where everybody's going to be able to get online and say whether they hated the movie or not before opening weekend. So they're taking a big risk. It's like Tarkin saying to Vader, I'm taking a risk, Vader, that sort of thing.
An awful risk.
And they clearly believe in the film. Now, we've seen other studios believe in their films and they shouldn't have believed in them. So that doesn't necessarily mean the movie's good. But Rob, I mean, it just looks like they're just pulling out all the stops, every trick they can come up with in marketing this film. What do you think about the job they've been doing marketing the film so far?
Well, they were waiting, they were ramping it up, but now that we're in the last month before the release, I think the marketing has been very exciting. And more than anything, it's fun. The marketing itself is the same thing that Ryan Reynolds sort of pioneered with Deadpool. He turned something that's shamelessly commercial that we all understand, and yet he turned it into its own thing where the marketing itself, like seeing that Superman logo underneath the Eiffel Tower, well, that's fun. Seeing the S logo above the Golden Gate Bridge is fun. And when I worked on Superman Returns, there's a division of Warner Brothers there was at the time called Global Brand Management. And they would make partnership deals with large brands like Pepsi, and they would put Superman on Pepsi cans. Well, Pepsi pays the studio to be able to do that. And so part of what they're doing in this marketing campaign is developing partnerships. I'm sure Amazon paid money to be able to sponsor this advanced screening. And that, which is great for Amazon. It's great for their customers, so they can get in and buy these tickets if you're a Prime member. And so they're doing a lot of really innovative things. And I think it's exciting because, look, if they didn't think they had something, they wouldn't be going whole hog into the marketing. I think they know they've got something. And more importantly, they're making the marketing of this movie sort of be as fun as hopefully it'll be to watch the movie itself. They're not doing things that are necessarily, I haven't seen a drone show above a major American landmark that advertises Superman or advertises something else. I mean, that's pretty spectacular, and that's what you'd expect from a Superman movie. So more power to them. I mean, God bless Warner Brothers and God bless DC Studios and Peter Safran and James Gunn. I hope it all works out. I mean, I think all of us are very excited. It's fun, John. It's fun to be excited about a movie coming out again. I mean, I'm really excited to see this movie.
Listen, somebody sent me a link to a movie theater in Connecticut that is advertising, and they're selling seats for a Superman screening on the July 4th. Now, I haven't seen it anywhere else.
Wow.
But I'm going to give, after this show, I'm going to give that theater a call and say, was this a mistake? Or are you actually showing this? Because if there is, Rob, I may be taking a road trip to Connecticut to go see this on July 4th. Now, listen, I'm seeing a lot of people who still don't get it in the live chat. It's like, wait a minute, they spent like $250 million. That means this movie's going to need to make $650 million, $700 million to break even. And you're not wrong. This movie is going to take about $650 to $700 million to break even. But I've been telling people this for 2 years. They don't care. They don't care. Warner Brothers is totally, and I've been telling people this for almost 2 years now, Warner Brothers is completely comfortable if Superman loses a little bit of money. Let's put it this way, Rob. When Netflix lost money for over 12 years straight when they went to streaming, for 12 years straight, they lost money before they started turning a profit. Disney Plus lost billions because they expected that, but they lost billions in the first couple of years that they were streaming. Peacock lost billions when it starts streaming. In starting this brand new cinematic universe that is unlike a lot of others, this is a cinematic universe that isn't starting at zero. It's starting at negative 500 because of all the baggage and garbage that comes along with the old failed DCEU. And the fact that this is the 18th Superman we've had in the last 20 minutes. And the fact that a lot of people didn't like the other stuff. This is a thing that's starting so low. And I've told people for 2 years, Warner Brothers' number one responsibility here, they're okay if they lose a little bit of money on Superman. That's not what you normally say about every other movie. But with Superman, they're okay with it if people love it, because they're not worried about the $100 million they may make on this movie. They're worried about the $50 billion they want to make on these movies over the next 15 to 20 years.
Sure.
And the only way they're going to make money on future movies is if people love Superman. So they're pulling out all the stops. They gave it a really big budget. I mean, not the biggest budget of all time or anything, but they gave it a big, healthy budget. They gave it a huge marketing budget because they know this film needs to succeed with the audience. They know the audience needs to love it. They know they need to change the narrative. So, yeah, it's ridiculous to make a movie and market a movie that's going to cost you $675 million just to break even. But Warner Brothers is, and I've told people this for years, and nobody wants to listen. That's why Warner Brothers has always been comfortable with the idea that the first movie may lose money. Because whatever money they lose, they're going to make up for that over the next 5 films. Anyway, what do you think?
Well, no, I totally agree with you. One of the things that people have to remember, though, is this comes out of a specific, there's a marketing department at Warner Brothers, and that marketing department over the course of a fiscal year might be in charge of marketing 10 movies, 15 movies.
Right.
And it's all an expense. So however it plays out in the long run, it's not easy. People don't understand there's studio overhead that is worked into the budgets of films. It's an ongoing process. It's not like, here's the coffers for a movie. Like, a movie has its production budget, but the marketing budget of a movie isn't necessarily tied to how much it costs to make that movie. But you're talking about overall operational expenses for the studio for the year. So if they choose to put in $250 million to market Superman, there's a reason, like you said, they're playing the long game. And, a lot of it has to do with how much they feel they can spend on marketing. But there's a lot that marketing entails. And we're so used to thinking in terms of simple, easy numbers. It's a lot more complex than that.
Yeah, and it always has been. And look, don't get me wrong. Warner Brothers would love to make money on this film.
Of course.
Don't get me. Of course they would love this movie to make 800 million at the box office, 900 million. Oh hell, maybe even $1 billion. They would love that. Of course they want that. I'm just saying, I think Warner Brothers, DC, James Gunn, David Zaslav made peace with the idea years ago that with what they need to do with this Superman movie, they're okay if it loses money, if it accomplishes its goals. If it accomplishes its goals and it sets up a bright future for a DC cinematic universe where they can make billions and billions of dollars over the next 10 years, then they're totally at peace with it. Do they want to make money? Absolutely. Would they prefer it make money? Absolutely. But they're comfortable that it may not, and I think that's okay.
I mean, it's interesting. If you go back and look at Marvel, look at the 3 Captain America movies. Look at how much Captain America 1 made. I think people would be surprised at how little it actually grossed worldwide. But then look at how much Winter Soldier made, and then look at how much Civil War made, and then the Avengers movies and everything that came after it as part of a carefully constructed franchise. And like what you were saying, that's what they're doing here, which is what the DC universe didn't do before. They tried to they wanted their cake and eat it too with something like Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice and going right into Justice League. This is more carefully constructed. And like you said, they're willing to put up money up front because they need to make a splash.
And I think they're clearly going to make a splash again, breaking the record's highest first day ticket sales, outpacing Fantastic Four, which had a lot more screens for it to sell tickets for too.
Mhm.
Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? I mean, Superman seems to be pulling out all the stops. I'm seeing they're spending a lot of money on television ads. I'm seeing a lot of billboards. I'm seeing a lot of other types of more viral kind of or guerrilla marketing tactics for it. They're really putting the foot to the floor. Now, will the movie be any good? Well, that's going to be the most important thing, so we'll have to see. Whatever you guys think about all this, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, it's time for us to move on to taking your comments and questions you've been sending in. But before we do, we're going to bid adieu to Robert Meyer Burnett. Rob, thanks a lot for being here, man. Great job as always, my friend.
Thank you very much, and happy anniversary.
Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you again on Monday.
Give the doctor my love.
I will. Dr. Ann Campea. I still got to get used to calling her that. I call her Doc from now on around the house. All right, guys, we are going to get to your comments and questions you guys have sent in. But before we do, we're going to take a quick moment here and thank the sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Stitch Fix. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Stitch Fix. Guys, you know I love movies, but you also know I have absolutely no fashion sense, and I absolutely hate shopping for my clothes. But thankfully, I have found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. With Stitch Fix, I get a stylist who understands my style, size, and budget, and they do all the shopping for me. Because look, shopping and figuring out style can be overwhelming, especially for somebody like me. When it comes to getting dressed, I don't even know where to start, to be honest. That's why I love having a Stitch Fix stylist. They really know what works for me. I get pieces that make me look great, and it's a real confidence boost. You just give your stylist your size, style, and budget preferences. You get to order boxes when you want and how you want, no subscription required. They send you personalized pieces, and the fit is always on point. No stores, no crowds, no stress. Just personalized looks that you will love. So guys, make style easy. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Campea. That's stitchfix.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Stitch Fix for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get things started here with your questions, shall we? We're going to pick things up here with Raymond Verrata, who writes, the Spaceball announcement teaser is here. It was so good, man. Bill Pullman and Rick Moranis are set to return. It's Rick's first movie in 20 years. Will there be a Schwartz giveaway? An Eagle 5 popcorn bucket? Oh my God, how good would that be? Pizza, the Hut Pizza. What will be the movie's chicken jockey moment? So again, we talked about this on yesterday's show. That, again, we are getting Spaceballs returns, man. And I could not be more excited about it. I'm just so stoked about it. I can't believe it's finally coming. And I'm so excited. But will there be an Eagle 5 popcorn bucket? No. Do I think there's going to be Pizza the Hut pizza? No. Do I think it's going to have a chicken jockey moment in the movie? No, because here's why. As ridiculously as excited as I am about this movie coming, Spaceballs 2, I actually don't think a lot of people are going to see it. I just think it's a 38-year-old movie. The whole thing about the spoof, I mean, hopefully Naked Gun can do well, but they're kind of out of style right now, and maybe Naked Gun can turn that around. So I don't expect a lot of people to see it, but I hope they will. All right. Thanks for that, Raymond. Next up, we got Anonymous who writes, I'm going to upset you. Doesn't it make you feel old to know that Keira Knightley is now 40 years of age? I am crying. I think she is still a great actress and definitely does not look her age. What's your favorite movies of her? Oh, I mean, she's still 40 is still young, and she's fantastic. I think my favorites of hers, Imitation Game, she was fantastic in that. Atonement she's incredible in Atonement. That was great. Obviously, she was really good in Pride and Prejudice. I mean, she's just the type of actress who can do just about anything. And I've always thought she was fantastic. I really, really like her a lot. All right. Next up, we've got Mustang Racer who writes, "Hey, John, I saw a new Superman trailer and holy smokes, James Gunn is delivering the goods. Not sure if it'll make $1 billion, but I think it'll get the closest to it out of all the Superman movies." Yeah, like I think, how much did Man of Steel make? There he is. There's Henry. How much did Man of Steel make? I think it was 600 and something million. Man, that is the most underrated comic book film of all time, Man of Steel. I think it'll pass Man of Steel. Like, I don't think it'll pass much more. Michael in the live chat is saying it made 667 million. Yeah, I think Superman will make more than that. I don't think a ton more than that, but I think it'll make more than that. And then we are off to the races. All right. Guys, it's 12 noon. A last question I'll take for today. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we're going to have to cut today's show a little bit short because it's my anniversary weekend with Ann. It's our 15th wedding anniversary. We're going away for the weekend to San Diego. So the last question we'll take here is Ben G. Worldwide, who writes, "Hey guys, have you seen the international TV spot for Superman?" Yes. Shows a bit more of Clark being Clark at work, Crypto irritating Soups. I love that shot. And the Fortress of Solitude. There's even one with Lois taking the piss out of Guy Gardner's hair. Yeah, I did see that. I love, because I've been a dog owner my whole life, I love everything with Crypto, but him like kind of nipping at Superman's feet going, stop it. For some people, they're not going to get it, and that's fine. It's okay. But it totally landed with me, and I love it. And I even like that one scene of like one of the guys at the Daily Planet talking to Clark Kent saying, "Man, that guy beat the hell out of Superman." Well, I wouldn't say beat the hell out of him. No, he pulverized him. You know, that was fun too. So yeah, they've been doing a lot of really, really good stuff with that. And all right, guys, that's all the time we have for today for the John Campea Show. Again, if you had sent in a question, and we obviously only got to a couple of them today, don't worry about it. We'll pick right up where we left off on Monday's show, and we'll get through all the questions that got sent in. So, hey, big thank you to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here today. And of course, a big thank you to you guys for taking time out of your day to spend with us here. Really appreciate you guys. And we will, of course, see you again on Monday. So that'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.